Hello everyone, this is Melissa and welcome to the OpenSolar Podcast, where we cover the inevitable shift into a world powered by sunshine.
That's right, Melissa. Hey everybody, I'm Sophie and we're going to cover the people, the technologies, the policy, everything that's contributing to the acceleration of solar adoption.
We call it the S-curve. Hi, I'm Birchie and we're delighted to have you along for the ride, so let's get into it.
Hello everyone, welcome to the OpenSolar Podcast. My name is Melissa and I'm really excited to have Jimmy and Sophie with me. Today's episode is particularly important and interesting because we've got solar pros turned openers. So I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves. Welcome to the podcast, Jimmy and Sophie. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for having us today. My story, I'm Sophie, the GM of Australia and New Zealand with OpenSolar, and I've been on board for just over 6 months on the team and in the industry for just over 6 years. I started in sales in solar and moved around a couple of different companies before I had my own solar and electrification business, which was really amazing and eye-opening, and I thought that was going to be my forever place. The universe obviously had another plan, and that ended quite suddenly, and I found myself thinking, what do I love and what do I want next in the industry? And having worked with the OpenSolar team and using the product for so long, I actually reached out and said, hey, I would love to know if there's any opportunities. So here I am.
You're kidding. Guys, this is the first time I'm hearing this as well. I had no idea that you reached out. Talk about shooting your shot. I really like that. Talk
Yes.
about manifestation.
Yeah, and look, I thought my business was everything and I was going to retire with this solar business, and all of a sudden my business partner didn't have the same intention. So it was all quite horrific. But I had spent quite a bit of time with Micah, and I reached out and I said, hey Micah, I want to be really really thoughtful about where I go next, and it's got to be meaningful, and I don't just want a job. I want to be doing something where I really believe in what I'm doing. And the open solar kind of story had always resonated with me, and it seems like a very logical fit, and I couldn't be happier with how it's turned out.
Oh, that's lovely. I can't wait to hear more. What about you, Jimmy? Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much, Melissa. Lovely to meet you today. And yeah, look, I think I've followed a similar path to Sophie. I started out in a very slightly different industry, energy retail. So started out selling power and then transitioned into the solar industry and selling the solar panels that produce the power. So I guess in a sense, it's all related. And yeah, I did that for 6 years, and almost the entire time I was with my previous business, we used OpenSolar, and I just loved it. I really, like, from the outset, I was a real fanboy, and it changed the whole way that I ran the business. It basically took over all of the office functions and automated them and sped them up and just made everything so easy for me. So it was a real dream for me, being on the other side of the fence previously. And then I did almost exactly the same thing. In fact, it was Sophie that I reached out to. I rang her. I didn't know Sophie from a bar of soap, but I heard her on a podcast, and I thought, I'm going to ring this lady and just introduce myself. And then at the end of the call, I just mentioned, hey, by the way, I'd really love to work for you. And a few days later, we got in touch, and it all worked out. But it was such a smooth transition, and I was so beautifully welcomed into the team. This is only 6 weeks ago. I'm very fresh into the team, but I've loved every minute. Sorry, Sophie, what was it?
Oh, really?
It's only 6 weeks. It's been a wild ride, but yeah. But from a product perspective, like, there's really nothing to, when you've used the platform for that long. Like, I was so comfortable with it, and it's been a real pleasure. So I should have introduced that. I'm the director of ProX for Australia. That's Pro Experience. Our pros are the users of our platform, the solar professionals. So my job is essentially to look after them in the same way that my predecessor looked after me. So now I'm on the other side of the fence, looking after people who are in my shoes, and I understand where they're coming from, and I speak their language, and it's just a real pleasure.
Yeah. No, I really like that. And I want to know, I want to learn more about what happens when two seasoned solar pros step off of the roof and into such an exciting solar company like Open Solar. And I want to dive a little bit more into your guys' world back then, kind of like what did no one tell you before you became a solar professional, and what was a day in the field like for you guys in particular?
I think I came into the industry with quite a naive understanding of what was involved in solar. And, particularly in Australia, we have a lot of regulations around, everything that you need to do. The steps that are involved in a solar installation before it even gets on the roof are just ridiculous. Like, people would not appreciate how many different portals, business tools, bits and pieces
Yeah.
can be involved in that process. So it's very it it requires a lot of process driven um, in the back end
Mm,
before any solar panels get on the roof, and then after the solar panels are on the roof, a whole lot more as well. Um, I signed up to be a solar salesperson thinking that all that was involved in solar was putting a panel on a roof and sticking an inverter maybe on the wall, because that's what I had on my own house. And that was a really steep learning curve, which I have absolutely loved. And I just think I was pretty naive about what was involved. And it was a delight to really find all of that that came in with the industry, and how much of a challenge that would be um, for a career to really grow on. And it excited me more than anything. So there's so many opportunities within the industry, I think, that people don't realize.
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's really interesting. There's so many different puzzle pieces when it comes to the solar industry.
Yes.
Um, what about you, Jimmy? What was it like?
Yeah, I'm trying to think like I guess the biggest sort of shock or misunderstanding that I had. I'd never heard the term solar coaster before entering the industry. And in Australia, I don't know if this is a global thing, we call it the solar coaster. There's so many layers of government subsidies, and depending on who's offering what in which region at what time, the industry just booms and busts. And just preparing your business for that can be a real challenge. Like if you've got a lot of fixed overheads that you can't bail out of, and all of a sudden the bottom's just dropped out of the industry, you can find yourself in big trouble really quick. So seasoned operators understand that and they can prepare for it. But when you're new to the industry, you have to catch up and learn that lesson pretty quick, and hopefully from others, not yourself. I think that was my biggest learning. Yeah.
Mhm. Sophie, I also wanted to ask, what was it like being a woman in the solar industry? As we know, a big part of the solar industry is still quite male dominated. Were there any experiences, or is there anything that you went through that particularly stood out to you as a woman in the solar industry?
Oh gosh, we could talk a long time about this, Melissa.
I
Um,
bet.
I I remember the first solar conference I went to, which was All Energy back in 2019, I think. Um, and walking into that first event and just realizing that it was all men, and probably, half a dozen women, maybe, with hundreds of men at that stage. It has changed dramatically, even over 6 years. Like, it's very, very different now. It's changed quite quickly in terms of, now at conferences there's a far higher female representation. But in terms of the everyday work life, I think for me, the biggest shock was the reaction of customers. So my first role was very customer based. I would book in appointments with homeowners and go out to site to do a site assessment and work with them on their solar design. And I would ring customers to book those appointments, and I would get this reaction all the time, mostly from females actually. They'd say, "Is it you that's coming out?" And it
Oh my
made me
God.
feel, yeah, really questioned. And I found it really challenging. I think the best outcome from that whole scenario was that it led me to go and do my solar design and battery design course, because I felt that I needed to be able to validate my role and my experience. So when I then got that reaction, which was daily, all the time, I'd say, yes, I am actually an accredited solar designer. I do know what I'm talking about. And there were a number of occasions and conversations, again, with women who I think sometimes we're our own harshest critics. Two very similar conversations where I finished a site visit and the female would say to me, thank you so much. That was so interesting and I've learnt so much and, you really know what you're talking about. But when you knocked on the door, I thought, oh no, here we go. She's not going to know what she's talking about.
Oh my goodness. And
And
how did that
that's
actually make you feel?
it's hard to know whether someone's trying to give you a compliment because they kind of are, but it's like, wow, you really thought from first impressions that I would just, I don't know, be really ditzy and not know what I was talking about. So it's been a real eye-opener for me, and it's led me to look, I'm not a bra burning feminist, but to really advocate for women in the industry. So because it's hard in a male dominated industry, it's why I'm one of the founding directors of Australian Women in Solar Energy, and we're really doing a lot to help women and support women in our industry, which is great, and we get so much support from a lot of the male champions as well. So it's great to see, and hopefully one day a WISE doesn't need to exist. That's kind of the goal, that equality will be there.
All industries have some sort of bias, and our one, unfortunately, is against women. And like you, Soph, I mean, one day I hope and I trust that there's a transition happening that won't be the case in the future. But for now, there is an underlying bias against women, which is highly unfair. That a woman like Soph should have to defend herself and do courses that maybe a man doesn't necessarily need. But
Yeah.
anyway.
I had an interesting kind of following on from that kind of thought process. I did work with a company that was all male. All the other sales members were males. And we had a really interesting conversation with some customers and them one day. And it's always the assumption when a man turns up to do a site visit that he's an electrician. And in fact, none of those males salespeople were electricians. None of them had even done a design course, but everybody would assume that they were electricians. Crazy.
Yeah, it's what I do like, and what I do like to see is that these things are being discussed now and not kind of just pushed under the rug. Because at the end of the day, us women, we're here and we're in the solar industry, and I think it's not about preferential treatment. It's just about being respected for all that is done. So thank you so much for even sharing that with us, because I can't imagine what that was like. But Jimmy, I wanted to know, what drew you to OpenSolar, and was it scary to leave the field?
Yeah, no, not scary at all. It was exciting. Like, it was
Okay,
super,
good.
very exciting. I loved and believed in the platform. So like I promoted it even when I wasn't, when I was on the other side of the fence using OpenSolar, I would promote it to my industry peers. Internally, I promoted it within the business. I loved it. So it was a very natural transition. Yeah, like I said earlier, there was really no learning curve. So it was an obvious transition for me, and something that I've really enjoyed in my first 6 weeks.
Oh, I like that. What about you, Sophie? How's it been when you're first looking at OpenSolar from the outside, and what's it like now that you're in and you're literally the general manager of Australia and New Zealand as well? So,
It's been a crazy journey, but it's so amazing to see what the OpenSolar platform looks like from the other side. And we talk about OpenSolar being designed by pros for pros, and that really is the case. And it's when any new former pro comes into the business, it's like, let's have a chat, Sophie, let's have a chat, Jimmy. And the feedback and our experiences are really then listened to and taken to enhance our platform even more. So it's really lovely to be able to take that experience and help shape out the OpenSolar ecosystem to be even more helpful. I always used to batter on about, where is zero integration, and can we do this, and can we have these features? And seeing some of those start to roll out now, it's like, yes,
yeah.
now they're happening, and it's great. And it really helps to make our product even better. And one thing I have to say is that the staff at OpenSolar, I don't know if they're going to listen to this, but it's such an extraordinarily talented group of people. I feel really privileged to be working amongst everybody because they bring so much valuable experience and knowledge and insight. It is an incredible team, and it's an honor.
Oh, me too. I feel like that quite a lot as well. And everyone is just so passionate, and it's a lovely place to work, that's for sure. What about you, Jimmy? Like, what parts of your solar background would you say help you in your new role, considering that you literally speak to pros so regularly now?
Yeah, well, there's the customer facing, but then like what Soph just touched on is really true, the internal. Like just bringing that first-hand experience and like these are the types of challenges I experienced as a pro. These are the solutions that I need. And I feel like as an organization, OpenSol is really open to listening to that feedback internally from its own staff. There's a wonderful system for feeding that back. And I feel extremely empowered, more than I ever have working for any other organization. I feel very empowered to make a meaningful difference to the product that we offer. I actually see the results of the conversations that I'm having developed. So yeah, that's a wonderful feeling. But also from the customer facing perspective, I'm having these calls with customers, and even just when I'm doing demos, or if they come to me with a particular issue and they're like, Jimmy, how do I do this? It's so great to, over 6 years, you build up such a wealth of knowledge, and it's sort of all for nothing at the end of the day if you can't share that back with someone. So it's this really wonderful feeling of just giving back to these pros, like, hey, I had exactly that challenge one day. This is what I did about it, and that's just a great outcome. Yeah.
Oh, I really like that. Did anything surprise you guys, like about working at Open Solar?
It's all been very pleasant surprises, Melissa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
from a workplace perspective, I've worked in lots of different organisations of different sizes and government and a whole lot of variety there. But to work in a organisation that everyone works remotely, which firstly is so interesting, and for me, I thought it would be really hard to adjust to, but we're on meetings all day. You don't feel alone at all, and it's all very collaborative. But different organisational policies that we have, like whoever created Open Day is a genius, because that one day a month that we get and everyone has the same day off is just incredible, partly because I normally forget that it's coming up. So it's a nice surprise.
Every
But
single month.
yes,
Yeah.
to have a day a month where you're actually really encouraged to switch off. As somebody who works extraordinarily intensely most of the time, it's a real gift, and it's really lovely to have that recognized, that everyone needs that downtime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with that. And I think Open Day, we were also kind of privileged to have that as well. And for anyone listening who doesn't know what Open Day is, that is a day, not a weekend day, not a day we have to book off. It's a day that all openers are entitled to once a month to refresh, no strings attached. And it's a lovely time. I know that you, Jimmy, spent it with your family the last Open Day, and Sophie gave blood. So next Open Day, I really need to step up my game. People are really,
Yeah.
openers are really doing it on Open Day, giving back
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
community.
It's wonderful, and I just love that we share what we do as well. So we've got these internal
Yeah.
ways of just keeping in touch. It's a global team. I love being part of like a worldwide team that's all knitted together. Obviously we're on opposite sides of the earth right now, Melissa, and we just have chats like this. And on Open Day, we share what we're doing with videos, and there's this really just beautiful team culture, and I really felt that coming on board too. I felt so welcomed by everybody. People were reaching out internally to book meetings with me just to introduce themselves one on one all over the world, and I immediately felt part of the team.
Oh, that's really nice. I've got one more question for you guys. What's one piece of advice you wish someone had given you early on in your solar career? So imagine that you could speak to yourself 7 years ago before starting. What's the one piece of advice you wish someone had given you?
I'm happy to go first if
Yeah,
you
you
like
go.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it was So there's different models of solar businesses, right? And the model that I adopted, but it took a little while to arrive at this point, was very much one of quality solar, quality service, relevant price point in the market to remain relevant. And that was an amazing decision to pivot our business in that direction, because ultimately what it did is it created organic referrals. So we didn't promote ourselves. Everything just came in organically by one happy customer referring another one after the other. So we had zero marketing budget, but we
Wow.
went for very high-end equipment. We delivered an excellent experience. And I think that business model had a lot of merit. And I've recommended this to a lot of new players in the industry. You can race to the bottom, you can punch out bazillions of quotes and make a skinny little margin on each install, and eventually the warranty claims will catch up on you and it'll become very painful very quickly. Or you can go the other way. And I think it's very rare that a solar business is brave enough, or a solar operator is brave enough to do that, to step out and go, I'm only going to do a couple of installs a week, but I'm going to make a significant margin on each and I'm going to do a really good job. That would be my advice.
I really like that mindset. What about you, Sophie?
Slightly different to Jimmy. I mean, firstly, I wish somebody had told me about the solar industry earlier, or I had discovered it as a career option. Because you know, it's just such a wonderful place to really foster a career and drive something that has meaning and results, and you can see what you're achieving and contributing to something that's much larger than yourself. So I wish I'd known about the industry earlier to start. And probably the other bit of advice, just from a kind of a general perspective, is just to back yourself in any new industry or career. I think that sometimes, imposter syndrome can be very real, but to sort of appreciate that there's a lot of people that, don't necessarily know what they're talking about. Just go and learn as much as you can and throw yourself into it. And there are a lot of people in our industry that are very helpful and willing to help. I think that's one thing that certainly is the case that you see in networking events and throughout the industry, which is relatively small, right? So there's always somebody that's going to give you a helping hand, and to take those opportunities as they come.
I really like that. And I feel like you two are the perfect example of that, of actually how the industry works, how people are open, innovative, but able to help others. And I really do like that. And I love how you both came to Open Solar, and you're obviously a great addition. I wanted to know, what innovations at Open Solar are you most excited about for this year?
There's a lot that's coming this year that, like, literally it gives me goosebumps. One of
Yeah,
them that's
same.
Yeah, one of them that is kind of front of mind at the moment, because I've been talking about it most of today. I don't know if a lot of the industry knows, but there's a lot of changes coming to sort of buy now, pay later financing, which, being on the other side as a pro, finance was one of those things that in the businesses I worked for, we generally didn't have a lot of finance customers, but every now and then
Oh,
we would, and I'd have to go through the process of looking at finance providers and integrations and going through that process. I think that the market's about to change, particularly if we get a battery rebate. So finance is going to be more and more in demand. And with these regulatory changes, which honestly no one really knows the outcome of, we've been very forward thinking. We've got this new consumer-led finance offering, which means that a pro doesn't have to do anything, which is awesome, because there's so much other stuff that pros need to focus on in their day-to-day roles, and with regulatory changes that require them to do more, it just makes it harder, right? So this is literally sits in the Open Solar quote, and a customer can see it. They can apply for finance by themselves, with a whole lot of different, we use Loan Options AI, and they have a whole, um, I think there's over 100 lenders, did we say today, Jimmy?
yeah.
There's a lot.
88 lenders, I think it was. It's a
88,
big
yeah.
number.
It's a lot. It's a really big number. And it will literally pick the finance option that's best given the customer's situation, and the customer that can then gets the funds and can come and pay for their solar battery, whatever that is. So super easy. Pro has to do nothing. That is amazing if you ask me. it's working smarter, not harder, and it avoids all of those regulatory requirements of, where you kind of might get into financial advice and have to give X, Y, and Z to a customer. You don't have to do any of it. So that's really great.
Yeah,
What about
absolutely.
you,
And
Jimmy?
the time saved, right, as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
time saver.
it's
And it's going to close more deals because your customers have lots of different options to choose from. So it's a win-win for everybody. So that's really nice for pros.
yeah. I mean, I wish that was available when you and I were pros, Soph. It's just having that. I mean, like you said, the consumer wins. They have so many options available to them, and for the pro, for the user of OpenSolar, there's virtually nothing to do. It's awesome. But I was just thinking as you were speaking, like, what am I most excited about?
Yeah.
Um, I take a different view in that I think at OpenSolar we might be a little bit guilty of getting excited about the big ticket items that are coming, which is natural, right? We've got some really big exciting things coming. We want to tell the world about it. But sometimes it's the little things that actually make a difference in a pro's day. It can be some little enhancement that can actually change the way they do their business. And just today, I was loading, obviously we have our internal way of feeding back to the development team. Today, I was just loading items in there that were coming to me that, things that I wanted to see as a pro. And I'm confident that when we feed these back to the development team, a lot of them actually happen. So I'm really excited to see some of those little minor enhancements just all over the platform making a real difference. Because when I came on board with OpenSolar in the early days, it was some of the small things that made the biggest difference to me.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that. And I think that really highlights how OpenSolar listens. I know at OpenSolar, we say very often, by Solar Pros, for Solar Pros, but we genuinely listen. And I'm always impressed by the speed that change comes into place as well. And I hope that pros around the world appreciate that because I look at it and I'm like, oh, they've done that already? Cool. Like, from 6 weeks, so much can change. And our platform is always getting better and better. I've got one final question, which is a quick fire for the both of you. What word would you use to describe your solar journey so far? One word.
Extraordinary.
I like that.
I was going to say enjoyable.
That's mine.
I think challenging has a negative connotation, so I'm just going to say enjoyable.
Okay, I like that. Well, thank you so much, Jimmy and Sophie, for coming on the OpenSolar podcast. It's been really, really great to have you. Thank you for everyone who listened. Have a sunny day.